I think we'll just start it now. So yeah, it seems that there's like, are there refreshments today, Enrico? Where's Enrico? He had to go solve something. Yeah. So we'll. This is to end the first day. We thought to have a birds of the feather to collect more user feedback. Who here was at the power user session yesterday? Okay. So it was like so nice. You want to do it again, right? Because it's going to be the same kind of situation, with the same kind of prompts. We have, if you scan that QR code, it's just the same prompts, and we can go through some of those things in more detail. Maybe after a day of thinking about it, reflecting on things, we can prioritize things, or discuss things in more detail. That's just a link to get up to the Etherpad, and then I'll load it up. And Josh agreed to help me because, of course, the guys that are totally jet lagged are the ones that are going to do this last session of the day. And I really hope that there's some people that want to discuss it more and have some bigger questions or something that we should note down, and voila. And if not, we can also end early and go check out the museum. Up to you all. So, well, the link. So these were the prompts that we did with that we started with yesterday. And the notes that we took are pretty rough. This is all, so for those that weren't here yesterday, so what we did is we had a Ceph Developer Summit, and we actually went through like 4 different sort of areas, and people, we had pretty good discussions, I think. The first like area is like cluster management operations, like what are the pain points and like biggest challenges really operating at scale. Some of the topics we probably went a little bit too deep, so maybe we shouldn't pick on those topics as much today. Then performance, so like if there's any specific performance thing that we should really focus on. Learn some pretty interesting things for me. I think the highlight yesterday for me was that I learned that RGW bucket listing performance with like unlimited size buckets, this is going to be fixed pretty soon. I'm not sure, I don't see Matt in the room here, but that's going to be a big pain point removed. We didn't yesterday talk about this like ecosystems and integrations. We skipped it, so if anybody has something there, maybe we can start there. And then, yeah, future development and just kind of like, catch all at the bottom. So does everyone have the URL up? Like this, the way we usually do these is, type in your feedback here, or Josh has got an extra mic, you can walk around. It's meant to be, you share your thoughts, brainstorm something, maybe we can get something really useful feedback out of it. Does anyone want to start with something?
Dan, do you want to try summarizing some of what we talked about yesterday?
Sure.
Folks who weren't there?
Were you there?
Only for the second half.
Okay, let's do it like that then. So when we started talking about cluster management operations, like immediately people jumped into Ceph ADM. So yeah, I probably steered that a bit by asking, because yesterday was really inviting people that have been using operating Ceph for quite some time. The question, which is like, if you're not using Ceph ADM, it's like, why not? So that's where we started with. And there's clearly always been a little bit of a fear of the unknown, like unfamiliarity. This was mentioned a few times. Lots of, I wouldn't say lots, but like discussions about containerized versus package. That remains like a kind of like a showstopper for some organizations. The complexity of having to learn 2 things. I think these are all feedback that we've known since basically the beginning. We've been discussing this stuff. Is a Ceph ADM developer in here that wants to maybe respond to some of this kind of common? So I think that, for me, I think that we should take this back and and have a dedicated session about these. Like these are like the core things that are preventing from some Ceph ADM, some users adopting Ceph ADM. So we should take this back and like find a solution for those. We pulled which orchestrators are used. Okay, in general, Ceph ADM got the most upvotes, but Ansible and Puppet remain used, and some DIY homemade. Is anybody here fessing up to these DIY homemade things? Like, what are these? That was quick. Awesome. Yeah, you want to elaborate on that? That's interesting.
So yeah, DigitalOcean, we've talked about it a bit before, where Ceph ADM kind of isn't the right fit for us. Partly because when we started, it just didn't exist, right? None of the things on the list there were a thing back in 2016, 2017. Or if they were, they weren't at the maturity stage that we would have required. Another part of it too is we have secret storage that at some point we need to hook into, and I don't know what the support looks like for that from Ceph ADM. Like if we need to hook into Vault, if we need to pull keys out of there, put stuff in there. I don't know what that story looks like. I also don't know if we looked at what our solution does and what Ceph ADM does, I'm sure it's a Venn diagram. I don't know what the overlap looks like, what's missing, that kind of thing. I don't think we have a whole lot of motivation to move right now, but we were trying to keep tabs on a bunch of the things on the list there for a while.
You containerized?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the automation generates the Ceph confs. They populate the centralized conf. They deploy the containers. We can do a full Ceph upgrade from Pacific to Reef on block clusters today in under 90 minutes, which is.
We use our own containers too.
Yeah, we build our own containers, our own packages. We have a lot of cherry-picked patches. We have some of our own patches, that kind of thing. I don't know if like Ceph ADM would just let us pull in a different container image, that kind of thing, right?
What are your thoughts about like your processes related to, let's say, maintenance, replacing OSDs? Or is that something you just do offline with Linux, or do you have automation there as well?
We have other automation for that.
Other automation.
Yeah, and I'm working on more automation that kind of takes away the human element too. But that's we have it all in kind of a repo for like we call it storage CM, and this is the thing that does our upgrades. It does our deployments. We can pull nodes in and out of service at any time for reboots or firmware upgrades, that kind of thing. It kind of handles all of the end-to-end use cases that we've come across. And if we have a new use case, we just throw in a new Ansible playbook and it's done, right?
Yeah, so there's like a theme that also came up yesterday, which is that actually the orchestrators that we have, like Ceph ADM and Rook, they're not complete in the sense that like the goal is to do everything an operator would do, but that's a really long list of things, right?
Yeah.
So is it that you can't ever switch until it does everything, or that you would switch as long as it gave you also a way to do your stuff, to plug your stuff into it?
I think if it had the way for us to hook into everything, it would become an option for us. But I at the same time, it's saying like, why not use one of the off-the-shelf tools? We have a lot of experience with our tooling, and we can change it at like on a whim. So we also have the feeling of like, why would we switch at this point? Because it's just it's matured with our build.
One of our biggest management tools is maintaining disk reconditioning, taking stuff out, putting stuff in, and we have wrappers and tools that actually check logs to verify like, does this need to be replaced? Can this just be reconditioned? And then we don't even deal with that. We have a team that is able to use these tools and pick the right decisions for us. So it's just, and they wrap around like Ceph volume in the end.
Right. I mean, so like, how about from this kind of situation where there will always be like some users that have something outside of the box, do it themselves. Like, is that's something that can basically live, that state we can have it forever, right? There's never, I think in Ceph, upgrading got complex, but it's okay. You can just read what Ceph ADM does and set the flags and do it all in the right order. But dependencies can get messy, but if you build your own container, it's fine. This mic doesn't work that well, but it's okay in the end. It's like fine, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we're happy with our solution.
Like the problems with containerization, like the debugging things or logging or admin sockets, that sort of stuff? Do you have any issues with those areas?
No, so I think we actually use the Ceph daemon base container and then replace a bunch of the binaries in it from what we've built. We do build our own build container, which then does the actual package building and whatnot. But like you say, there's always going to be an opportunity for like a bash script to go and improve on whatever's going to be there. We haven't had any problems trying to get logs out. We just set the right mounts for the container. The same with the admin socket. We just give it a path to var run or whatever, and then the host can see it. And then we have daemons that talk to that, and just more observability tooling.
I mean, I don't remember. Did you guys share? Is this stuff reusable outside? I mean, there's always somehow.
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I mean, all of this somehow like Ceph was tough to install. Now it's not really tough to install anymore, right?
Right.
But there's like so much wisdom embedded in that kind of day 1,000. I don't like saying day 2. I don't know what that even means, right? Day 1,000 operations, day 5,000 operations, right? It's like the tools like Ceph ADM and Rook, they don't really have that stuff that the other organizations that have built their own stuff, they don't have that stuff yet. So how can we take, I mean, we don't have to answer that today, but we need to be able to take that stuff that you guys have and the different organizations that have done this stuff that haven't yet moved to Ceph ADM because they have their own stuff. Like, we should probably find a way to, have common procedures to do, those standard. There's not that many things that we all do, right? Adding a new failure domain's worth of capacity, replacing everything, draining it, like all of that stuff, that becomes somehow the hardest things to do. You have to really know, you have to like sense, watch Ceph minus S, see what's going on, sense if it's all okay, right? Are you guys at the point where it's like, you can go on vacation, you can do stuff, go on vacation, and it's like...
Yeah, I'm on call right now. And I'm
who's on call right now?
Yeah. That's more than I expected, yeah. Like, I'm not worried about too many things. We have the team that can handle it with a lot of our playbooks that use a lot of our tooling and these playbooks that we've written. For like some of the observability stuff, we have Ceph Exporter, which is open source, but then we also have something called Ster Exporter, which does a lot more of the nitty gritty and exports more that may or may not belong in that tool. We'd like to kind of look at open sourcing it. We were talking about it today, but that would be like, where do some of those metrics belong? Like, do they belong being exported from the admin socket, or should they be in the Prometheus manager module kind of thing?
Just a clarification, because this is also something, like, when you said you're on call right now, but what I meant was like actively, like, clusters are normally health okay, things are okay, but there's actually some, maybe with PG auto scaling and things in some future state, like, things are moving all the time. There's always a state, in the larger organizations, like, if you've got hundreds of clusters, there's always something going on. And like, can you really just ignore it and it's going to be okay?
Yeah, a lot of we deploy a lot of smaller clusters rather than larger clusters, so the clusters keep growing in number, but they always tend to follow a pretty fixed kind of like size. So we don't use the PG auto scaler it doesn't actually act. We have it on warn mode, and then we'll kind of discuss, like, at this size, does it make sense to change? Do we duplicate or double our PG counts? And that's kind of like a team decision. And then, like I mentioned, node maintenance up and down. Like, it's something super simple, but like you said, you got to watch Ceph-S, and that's kind of what our playbooks do. There's an acceptable list of warnings or health warnings that the automation will proceed through. Like, objects misplaced is okay, but degraded isn't. That kind of thing. So there's a lot of nuance there that we could probably share.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us have come to the same conclusions as well. Yeah.
That list is pretty large.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Skip,
Yeah.
I don't know. Who's here from? Is Roberto here from CERN? Oh, there's Enrico. Yeah, there's a similar thing, like the Ceph health check here, right? Which it's a exactly. If the number of warnings is this, then like,
yeah, we literally call it Ceph weight healthy, and It's just when we're doing any sort of upgrades, automation stuff, it's just
Yep.
one of the things we do. So if someone else could kick off an upgrade, not even on our team, if we wanted them to, and it would do the thing correctly, and it would wait, or it just would fail out.
Great. I see people are, I mean, thanks a lot for the input. Does anybody else want to ask a question? Oh, yeah. There's a, Josh, there's.
Question actually
Greg's got it,
for these
yeah.
fellas. Those conversations about whether you're going to split PGs or not, what are the details that you talk over when you're deciding on that?
So a lot of times, like we still kind of try to keep close to that 100 PGs per OSD kind of thing. With a lot of the testing that like Mark Nelson has done, like just crank up that PG count and you get tons more performance. Like we'll start playing with that. But if we keep adding, we double the number of nodes now. Each OSD has half the PGs. We've probably gone from like 160 PGs now to 80. Well, okay, let's double it again, right? But I think that the worst thing for our performance in that sense is having too few PGs. So we try not to. We don't want the OSDs to be idle, or we don't want PG locks to be our contention point.
Which version are you, excuse me, which version are you running?
Oh, a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of them. Nautilus and Object, mostly Nautilus and Object, and then Pacific is disappearing in block for a Reef. We're mostly Reef for block now.
Yeah, so a lot of the feedback I have is that, like, because splitting and merging, changing PG numbers is like a kind of a one-way thing. Do you have that same feeling? Like,
We've done merges.
you've done merges, and it's unpredictable how long they'll take as well. Right?
Yeah, with PG Remapper, we're not too worried about like that kind of thing. We do automate it away with some of the scripting, so we're not stuck with a bunch of backfill wait. But it's
You can PG remap splitting and merging.
merging. I think we use a script. I think we use a script.
Is
for
Greg
that.
in here? There was a thread about 3 years ago where I had completely misunderstood how splitting works, and Greg corrected me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
made
I don't think.
misremembering
I don't know if you can up map splitting stuff. Yeah, it's like it splits locally and then.
Yeah, splitting. No. Yeah, we do set the number of misplaced, the percent to 0.1 or 1% or something. Yeah, it's lower than the default.
When you were splitting. Yeah. No, it's just more that like you set it, you get it going, and then you don't know. Like maybe it will take. I've personally just recently seen it take over a week. Yeah, over a month. But it's like with a very little amount of data too. The one I saw. I mean, so it's like it's just unexpected. Yeah, but. Of course, yeah. Yeah, sure. Okay. There was another. So, I mean, is anybody out, like PG splitting and merging? It's like no problem. That's conclusion. Everyone is agreeing with that? Yeah. Great. Pardon? Yeah. And you're sleeping well at night. No problem. Yeah. Awesome.
Uninteresting comment, but could we just zoom in a bit on the notes because they're a bit small?
It's already at 150, guys. There we go. How's that?
That's great. Thank you. That's all I wanted.
Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, so I don't know, continuing through it. I mean, okay, that GDB thing, like, I mean, that's something that has come up a few times. Like, that would be useful. Does anybody have a container that they built that's got all the symbols compiled that they attach? Yeah. You guys have everything.
So this is something that is actually on our to-do list. We have it kind of scoped out, and like it does work. We have a container for running like perf top and stuff with symbols, but we want something where we can have it just deployed everywhere, and if we need to, we can just spin that up real quick. But yeah, we've done that.
Have any of the devs like seen that sort of thing on any roadmaps?
Well, we just talked about this a bit at the Dev Summit yesterday in terms of having an idea of like a dev container that has all the tools you need to build Ceph and operate with it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So like that way you wouldn't have to, for development purposes, you wouldn't need to rebuild everything from scratch. You'd have a steady baseline, just recompile what changes you made, and it could also be used potentially for this kind of purpose for debugging running systems and having performance analysis tools as well. I think it's a very helpful thing for sure.
Okay, yeah, we went into a few more things. I mean, so that kind of, I mean, the dependence, well, Kyle went into that in detail, like what's in the Ceph ADM shell. You weren't there, yeah, so the Ceph ADM shell is very slim. So it's like, it's pretty, if you're just using that one, you can of course access the rootfs, but it's, if you're doing anything complex, like for example, running Vim, it's like not there. So anyway, Kyle's not here to, sorry. Yep.
Over lunch in a discussion that people are using actually own built containers which would solve these problems. Do you have experience with that? Do other people do that? Build their own containers for Ceph Adam?
You can, yeah. You can pass any image URL and run it.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing stopping you. You just take their base, add what you want, away you go.
I contributed Debian support for this, so you can now build Debian containers with it.
Yeah, I also heard it from other users about building their own containers for this to match their own infrastructure or their own tooling, their own operating system, perhaps. So I think it's a fairly common thing.
Maybe even in the docs, a tutorial for just how to build a Ceph ADM shell container with GDB or whatever else you want in it. Just half a page.
Oh, it does? It might be a little janky, but, patches. Bug tracker on the docs or doc improvement requests. There's a section, I don't remember where it is exactly, but there's a section on how to build a GDB container with a base image.
Great. Okay, yeah, we also, I mean, in this section we went, is there any other follow-up on that stuff? There was also, okay, we went into some OSD latency things, which maybe we don't need to go into too much detail. Was there something?
On upgrades and reboots where all the OSDs come up, latencies, and we had it's like a lot of etcd stuff running that would, didn't like that. And how we solved that was basically just using no up flag, letting everything boot up once everything is in a ready to boot state, take off the no up, and they all come in at once, and it was significantly better. And we do that for all of our automation now. It sped up our upgrades significantly.
I wonder if that would also fix the activating deadlock that happens sometimes when you bootstrap.
We wait until it goes active and then unset no up. And you can do that by host or by whatever.
Exactly.
Yep.
I think that's a very Patrick? Oh, okay. It's a meta comment. Okay, I heard it. Yep. So we'll get to that, but I think that's a super valuable thing. Let's note that. Okay, we got it. Dio does no up. All right. Woot. Okay. Well, okay. So Josh's plan to review what we discussed yesterday. Good idea, but we're going to switch gears. Okay. So here we go. Status of upmap balancer script. So yeah, I got one. These guys got one. There was, Laura's not here, but she plans to put it into Tentacle. They're working on it, that kind of functionality. Like we chatted through in detail with her about exactly how that would work. And it's a pretty simple idea. It's just that we already have, so the status is that this will just become a core feature. And exactly what it would do is that if the number of misplaced objects is too high, it'll just create extra up maps to decrease it down to whatever is the target limit, right? So, and let's say also follow all the other rules that already exist, like the start time and end time and begin day and end date and all that stuff. And if it's not supposed to be balancing, it'll just do its best to create up maps to pause the movement. One missing thing though is that we probably need to re-add a force up map, but you can up map a PG exactly. Andras showed me that one. Yeah, there's some leftover stale code that nobody knows about that you can just up map. It's not up map. Not up map atoms, just PG up map. If you use that one directly, okay, but probably I think we should maybe clean that one up. But I know, but okay. I don't know if when I spoke to the team, they're not, it's like, this is, okay, if it works, yeah, I'm not sure the test coverage is there.
PG upmap items doesn't let you remap everything to its original state because you cannot change just the order of an erasure-coded pool OSDs. And PG upmap does let you do that, and it works. So it can exactly remap everything back.
Does PG upmap let you break failure domain rules from Crush? No,
it
still
has
not?
the same validation in it.
Okay, yeah. We need one that lets you break Crush.
I don't think it lets you break Crush. I didn't extensively test it, but basic checks are there.
Yeah. Just why do we need that? What a crazy idea, right? We need to be able to break Crush if you're switching, for example, failure domains where the current failure domain also would respect the new failure domain, right? Like switching from host to rack or vice versa. There's a scenario where it's still okay that everything's replicated by host, but you want to go to rack and it'll just gradually move things. So it'd be nice to be able to just up map everything and do that gradually. Otherwise, such an intervention is really difficult.
The code that does that validation is fairly straightforward, so it wouldn't be too hard to not do that.
Yeah. So does that answer that question? Whoever asked that? That's 1 out of 12 things. Okay. Deep scrubbing. So I suppose what this question is, whoever asked it can own up. I think we got warnings about it, right? Is that what you're asking about? Okay, there's the.
Yeah, hello. Basically, the question is understanding how these scrubs are performing, because right now you cannot you can see last time how long it take duration, how long it took for deep scrub to perform only on that PG dump output, but you don't have metrics and you don't have some kind of indication if your deep scrub is performing better or worse after your tuning, because we have problems in deep scrub and we don't know how to tune it, and we just want to try it and we don't have any metrics about it.
Is Ronan? Ronan's not here. He's always happy to get feedback. Yeah. Any response to that one? Otherwise I have a response. I mean, the defaults are just useless. The default scrub intervals are meaningless, and so let's just say they're meaningless. They're just arbitrarily saying we should scrub everything every day and scrub everything and deep scrub everything every week. But whether you can achieve that depends on the amount of data in the PGs. It depends on the speed of the devices. It depends on a lot of things, right? So there should probably be some kind of more feedback loop and then warnings to actually set the scrub intervals, and then warnings if things are really not progressing or something like that. So maybe if we can grab Ronan tomorrow at some point and give him that kind of feedback. Does that sound like what you're talking about? Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, here's someone that said that PG splitting didn't work for them, and it took down their CephFS.
We have SSD for the actual stuff, and for the data hoarders, we have an HDD cluster. And on the HDD cluster, when we use CFFS and then split the PGs, then the PG goes down and up during the split, and therefore the whole PG, and therefore the whole FS goes down, and that's kind of annoying. So that would be nice if this could be fixed, even though probably HDDs are not a thing for the future, but they're still around.
What do you mean by the PGs go? What do you mean?
So I don't know how it is with Squid, but at least until Reef, when you increase the PG number, the PG is marked as down. So in Ceph Ceph S, you see that it goes down.
Something wrong. That's not normal.
It's a default configuration, and I can reproduce it with different distributions and with different releases. But I'm happy to follow up with a bug report.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, that sounds like something to investigate there. Thanks.
No, so the expected behavior when you're splitting a PG is, there's two steps that you see that happen. First, you see creating. You see some PGs in the creating state. Those are like, because I don't know if you've looked inside, like let's say the OSD pool says there's two numbers, PG num and PGP num, and there's also the targets for both of those. PG num is like the number of PGs, but some of them might be empty. PGP num is the number of PGs that are used for data placement. So the first thing we do is we increase PG num, that's the creating state, but they're empty, that's all transparent. And then you increase PGP num, and it starts backfilling splits and backfills to the new PG. And all of that, everything stays active the whole time except for the brief few, subs less than a second when it appears that new PG. That's the normal. Yeah.
We see it exactly like that. On HDDs, it's just so much slower. On SSDs, I can exactly see what you're describing. On HDDs, and we have old HDDs, old hardware, it's just so slow that it's enough for CFFS to become unavailable during that time. But again, I can send a video of the Ceph S, and I can write the proper bug report, and I'll do that.
Yeah, it could be that the performance is just so slow that the OSD gets saturated disk-wise or CPU-wise and can't respond to anything else at that point.
Okay. By the way, do we have until 6 or, I mean, we have until whatever we want, I guess, but at some point, I guess people want to go head over to the museum. T-shirt? T-shirts? Okay, yeah. So there's a lot here that we're not going to get to.
Maybe we can fold some of this into the developer AMA tomorrow as well.
Yeah, great idea, Josh. Is there something that someone wants to fill the last 3 minutes with? That raise your hand if you put something in here and you thought it would be a good thing to finish with. Instead of us reading all these things. Excellent. Okay. So let's fold these into the AMA tomorrow. We'll start at, everything starts at 9 a.m. tomorrow here, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a few keynotes and a couple of 2 different kind of panel discussions that will happen. It'll be like an interactive session more tomorrow with a keynote from Bloomberg. Yeah. So that's it. Excellent. Have a good night, everyone.